functions from next year. These debt service costs are not discretionary. In other words, we cannot avoid paying them. Their effect, therefore, is to crowd out other spending priorities. Debt service costs are expected to rise from 269.2 billion in 2021-22, that's the next financial year, to about 365.8 billion in 2024-25. This is higher than the health and police service budget. Nevertheless, there have been some positive developments on the fiscal side. Tax collections have exceeded expectations in the short term. Revenue for 21-22 is now estimated to reach 1.5 trillion, compared to 1.4 trillion at the time of the 2021 budget in February. This is an upward revision of about 120 billion rand. The consolidated budget is expected to be 7.8% of GDP in 21-22, gradually lowering to 4.9% in 24-25. Taxes paid by the mining sector have been strong due to the commodity price rally, which continued through the first half of 2021. Minister Mandasha was boasting the other day, he said, no, I'm feeding you guys these days because of what happened in mining. So the mining sector has been doing well, has given us sufficient revenue. This, about 85% of that 120 billion rand is from the mining sector. Notable, however, precious metals prices have started to soften. This means the revenue gains from the commodity prices rally are expected to be temporary. Therefore, we should be careful about our spending commitments. We recall what I said earlier on. Because of the temporary nature of that revenue, you can't commit it to long-term projects. You've got to commit it to short-term projects. We should not make permanent spending commitments from short-term revenue benefits. This approach is embedded in our fiscal framework. We are of the view that revenue can be increased with a more effective and efficient revenue collection authority. In this regard, SARS has already started to utilize the additional funding that we provided to them in 2021 budget by hiring skilled tax and custom auditors and data scientists to boost compliance and collection, as well as accelerate modernization. are to cater for the higher than budgeted public sector wage agreement. Mthembu uyabona ka abantu bamasha phansi bafuna imali yabo nansiya. Madam Speaker and honorable members, our budget over the next 3 years is focused on service delivery and is highly redistributive. You know, I was asked by journalists in the press conference, is this budget pro-poor? I said to this journalist, tell me this question. If 60% of non-interest spending, 60% of non-interest spending is on the social wage, what does that mean? When people say this budget is not pro-poor, they must answer that question. Consolidated government spending is expected to increase from 2.1 trillion to 2.24 trillion over the 3 years. Put differently, government will spend more than 6.4 trillion over the next 3 years. A key concern of government is the huge unemployment challenge we face as a country. South Africa continues to grapple with the long-run unemployment, and in the current conditions, unemployment is lagging the economic recovery. Government recognizes that we need more private sector jobs driven by a strong and growing investment climate. At the same time, the state must play a role in mitigating the impact of this crisis. And that's important, I must repeat this. Government must play an important role in mitigating the impact of this crisis. We've never said that should not happen. Accordingly, the 2022 budget will allocate almost 74 billion rand towards public employment programs over the MTF. In addition, further opportunities will be explored for supporting employment through other means. Government will also maintain its commitment to support fee-free higher education. In this regard, funding for fee-free higher education and training has been increased. In the 2021 government spending, 44.7 billion is in this function. This has been increased to 56.8 billion in the current year. Over the 22 MTF, funding for higher education will total 158.8 billion. Honourable members, as you are aware, the current social relief of distress grant is coming to an end in March. Let me emphasize this thing. But abantu ku treasury nama nasukela abantu kwethu. Nasukela. This government said it is extending it up to the end of March. Uhulumende utshilo up to the end of March. Treasury usathe cwaka. Bayanza abanye ophandla ukuthi hayi uTreasury uthe iyaphela. Hayi uhulumende uthe extend until the end of March. Well, uhulumende will decide, this government will decide whether to extend it or not to extend it. Yekani uTreasury lahlale yedwa. Mama ufuna uhulumende ngoba I was just talking about the budget is a decision of the government, not of treasury. If Nathan Mapa and the Nepong will be the cabinet, you perform. Not him. The grant has benefited about 9.5 million South Africans. This is over and above the existing social security grants. Today, 27.8 million South Africans are social grant recipients of one or another. This accounts for about 46% of our population. At the same time, the number of people working has declined, further underlining the critical flaws in our economy. Our total spending on the social wage is also very high. This amount has grown to 806 billion from 2018 to 2019 to 1.1 trillion in 2021-2022. That's about 60% of total non-interest spending. Annual goes towards housing development, free basic services, employment programs, and so on and so on. It goes to that. So about 60% of total non-interest spending, as I've said earlier, annually goes towards housing development, free basic services, employment programs, health, education, social grants, among other things. Overall, the South African government is acknowledged as having one of the most comprehensive and expansive social security system in the world. And there are ongoing discussions about social safety net. Details on our interventions with regard to the social security net will be provided in the February 2022 budget. Yavaga, indeed. Lo mbuzo abantu bawubuza esitrateni uyawuphendulwa kwangilo rhulumente kodwa ndayithetha loo nto ngoFebruwari. Bafuna ndiphendule lingafiki ixesha laloo nto. Alikafiki ngoFebruwari ndizawuphendulwa ekubeni after government has pronounced on this matter. Yeah. Let me however, reiterate that a permanent solution in responding to these challenges is to achieve higher and sustainable level of economic growth. Madam Speaker, state-owned companies are intended to be important as enablers of economic development. Many SOEs, however, have been badly managed and have failed to deliver. In many instances, they've also been devastated by state capture, making them increasingly reliant on government. Since 2013, for instance, government has directed more than 290 billion rand to bail out state-owned companies at the expense of important social expenditure. Going forward, the restructuring of state-owned companies, informed by an assessment of their strategic relevance, is a priority. In this medium-term budget policy statement, no additional funding is provided for state-owned companies. The exception is to this is where guarantees have been called by creditors and conditions have been met by the OEC in question within the context of their strategic importance. Now, I was asked by a journalist, what does this mean? Did you know this is tough love? Tough love. These institutions, we've got to love them, support them, but not a laissez-faire. At some point, we need to draw a line and say, I know that performing tough love. We must be prepared to consolidate some of our state-owned entities and let go of those that are not longer considered strategically relevant. Our retirement reforms, before getting to retirement reforms, when I took over, I was appointed, Mr. President, I got a couple of calls, I suspect the teachers. Ungasilibala umbowini ebesesithembisile noko mntakwethu. Ungazwithdraw la withdrawal. Bebese bathembisile umbowini. So I'm answering that question now, but not in full. On retirement reforms, we are proposing measures to boost household savings by increasing preservation before retirement and to increase flexibility through partial access to retirement funds through what is called a two-pot system. In terms of this system, individuals will be able to access contribution to one end of the pot, while contributing to other pot would be saved until retirement. These measures would require legislative changes. These measures would require legislative changes and further consultation. Limited withdrawals would also depend on affordability and liquidity of the fund. National Treasury will publish shortly a discussion document on the details of this proposal to obtain inputs before further announcement to be made in February budget 2022. The reason it has got to be made in February 2022 is because we will have to pass it together with the tax legislation. We'll have to pass legislation to give effect to it. To ensure equitable allocation of resources to provinces in response to the need to strengthen service delivery, the health component of the provincial equitable share has been revised and will be implemented from the year 2022-2023 financial year. Meanwhile, provinces receive almost 2 trillion in transfers over the next from MTF. That is starting from the next financial year. These allocations are made to maintain our commitment to the delivery of education, health, and other social services to our people. Madam Speaker, local government remains at the coalface of service delivery. It is the sphere of government closest to our people. Over the 2022 MTF, municipalities will receive more than 450 billion rand from the national fiscal. Our immediate task is to build capable and stable local government that delivers service effectively and efficiently. The 2022 budget will give details on the steps we are taking in this regard. Currently, there are 43 municipalities countrywide which are financially in crisis, with another 100 municipalities at risk of similar crisis. To deal with the 43 municipalities already in crisis, I have specified the expected course of action to be taken by all premiers, the provincial executives, and MEC in ensuring that the problems in these municipalities are dealt with in a more sustainable manner. This is in line with the national government's commitment to ensuring sound fiscal management and greater fiscal responsibility in the local government sphere. Let me take this opportunity to call upon the newly elected councillors to work hard to improve the state of their municipalities and to cooperate with the support initiatives of provincial and national government. For our growth and recovery agenda to succeed, we need a state that is capable, well-governed, and a society that is free of crime and corruption. Within government, there continues to be inefficiency in government expenditure due to corruption, wastage, and various other forms of maladministration. One critical part of our reform agenda is in the procurement system. I'm therefore delighted to announce that we are reaching the final stage of the finalization of the public procurement bill. We anticipate that that bill will be tabled before Parliament early next year in the financial year. Madam Speaker, the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into allegation of state capture, chaired by Deputy Justice Zondo, will soon present its report with its findings to the President. We look forward to swift action by the criminal justice institution to prosecute those responsible for the damage caused by the State Capture Project. For our part, we are working with all the irrelevant authorities and financial sector regulators to address deficiencies in our system and to sharpen our ability to deal more effectively and more speedily with all the financial crimes. In early 2020, we introduced a loan guarantee scheme, which enabled commercial banks to support firms in distress as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. This program has been concluded. In its place, we are considering a new business support measure to enable affected businesses to bounce back. This will be done by providing expanded funding options, broadening the types of financial institutions we can provide this function to include DFIs and non-banks. We're working closely with the South African Reserve Bank, the Banking Association, and other stakeholders to finalize this proposal. Further details will be announced shortly. Madam Speaker, in Glasgow in the United Kingdom, nations of the world gathered for the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference of Parties, what is called COP26. Our climate change mitigation commitments are bold. However, we need global coordinated initiative to succeed in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. If we invest in the correct infrastructure for the future, we'll be able to take advantage of opportunities to increase our trade with other countries. We note and welcome promises for funding to support our transition to a low carbon economy. We strongly welcome this commitment and will engage further on the details and obligations of all parties in this regard. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, let me reflect on key points we're making today. This medium-term budget policy statement is a call to action, a change to ourselves to once again renew the promise of a country that many fought for and have sacrificed much. We must continue to focus on saving lives and livelihoods. Between now and February 2022, we'll be working on the details of measures to deal with the socio-economic challenges we face, especially the crisis of unemployment and poverty. This must be done in a manner that does not depart from the strategy of stabilizing government debt. The recommendation in this regard will depend on the availability of resources, of course, including policy trade-offs and reprioritization. We reiterate that the key to resolving our development challenge is the need to push ahead with structural reforms necessary to unlock the growth of our economy. These reforms will include bringing additional electricity capacity into the grid, in addition to fixing ESCOM. Honourable members, the task of growing our economy requires that we work together as South Africans, single-minded in our understanding that working alone, none of us can achieve the desired results. Madam Speaker, I wish to thank the President, Deputy President for their leadership and guidance during these difficult times. I want also to express my appreciation to Deputy Minister David Masondo for his support. The Treasury staff, led by the Director General Mogajane, continue to undertake their task with dedication, and I express my thanks to them. My sincere thanks also goes to the Commissioner of the South African Revenue Service, Mr. Edward Casworth, and the working team of SARS. Many thanks to them, to the Governor number 10 of the South African Reserve Bank, Governor Lesesha Khanyo, and the staff of the bank for their work and support. Let me also thank my colleagues in the Ministers Committee on Budget and the Budget Council who have shared the load of tough decisions that have been made in the current climate. Similarly, the Parliamentary Committee of Finance and Appropriation, whose impressive record of processing the bills we table in is an unblemished, even as we have come to them more often than not in the past since last year. Finally, I want to thank also my family. I've had difficult times over the past few months, including my wife, of course. And to millions of South Africans whose resilience and courage during these times of pandemic and economic difficulties. You are an inspiration to all of us. We have privilege to serve the public sector. I thank you.
Order. I thank the Honorable Minister. The papers tabled by the Minister will be referred to the relevant committees. Order, Honorable Members. Today we have received the news of the passing on of Mr. de Klerk, and at the appropriate time, Parliament will have the honor to pay tribute. At this point, this now concludes the business for the day, and the House is adjourned. I thank you, Honorable Members.